Eleanor was sitting on the other side of the table at the lounge, elegantly drinking tea. Just the sight of that made it seem like we were picking up where we left off 4 years ago. It was just... This was the orbital station. Eleanor was meant to be on Earth, right? Have I inconvenienced you? Were her eyes always red like that? She asked this with a smile, and I shook my head. Not at all, though you did surprise me. Smiling, Eleanor slowly lowered her eyes and spoke while fiddling with her teacup. Seems that Risa is the same as usual. Huh. Since earlier it had been nothing but surprises. My head had been so full of thoughts about ABS that this sudden reunion had caused it to stop functioning properly. She has apparently been very concerned about you. Well, that's... So, what amazing things are you pursuing on the lunar surface this time? I've been observing you ever since you checked in, and you really do have the look of someone who's exhausted both their energy and their determination. When Eleanor asked me that with a troubled smile, I unconsciously stroked my cheek. Your face has always been an open book. Is that so? 4 years ago, due to the emotional trauma caused by the events with Hagana in the Outer District, I'd become unable to display any facial expression. Despite that, people like Reina had been able to read my face. Needless to say, Risa could do it too. Indeed, feelings can be conveyed through things besides facial expressions, you know. Eleanor said that, her eyes gazing into the distance as if reminiscing about 4 years ago. As I looked at her like that, I agreed with her sentiment silently. What about you, Eleanor? Did you come here because there was something on your mind? She probably wouldn't be able to say she'd just gone on a stroll, coming all the way here from her house in the middle of the European forest. Moreover, I was already going to impose upon Eleanor's hospitality during my stay on Earth. Since originally most of the biggest investors of our investment fund were people introduced by Eleanor or by people she had been introduced, going to meet them in person was one of the goals of my trip. From there, my ulterior motive was to gather these people up and convince them to let me access the official data that could help me find Hagana. That was why I came all the way here. Upon hearing my words, Eleanor didn't look at me for a while. When she did again, she seemed a bit angry despite her smile. I'm here to meet with the person I shared a big adventure with. Of course there's something on my mind. And that's... It includes, among other things, how you trampled on my feelings. As she said these words, she seemed to be utterly enjoying herself. I was just in a hurry to see you. Is that not reason enough? I had nothing to reply with to what she had just admitted with an embarrassed smile. Even if trampling on her feelings was an overstatement, it was true that I couldn't respond to those feelings. But it is also true that I have something on my mind. Eleanor said that before letting out a sigh. It was unhurried and elegant to the utmost, but also seemed to be coming from deep inside. Is it due to the changes in your life? When I said this, Eleanor looked up. She then let out a small giggle. That sure is an odd choice of words. Is that so? Yes, it is. Anyway, you are right. This is due to the changes in my life. When I had called her, Eleanor had apparently just met with her fiancé. She'd said the people most excited about all this were the people around her. Knowing her, though, she'd probably have rejected everything forcefully if she really wasn't happy about the situation. I have been wondering whether moving forward as I am is really alright, and then I knew I had to see you at least once. Is the answer supposed to be written on my face? It was. I blinked a little at Eleanor's smile. Because even though it's been 4 years since then, you're still the same as ever. You didn't even look this tired when we were up against Avalon. So who are you up against this time, I wonder? Could it be Emerald Industries? She sounded somewhat bewildered, but if she was asking me why I was looking so dispirited, then that meant she wasn't just somewhat bewildered. In terms of scale, it surpasses even Emerald Industries. Huh? Eleanor stared at me before asking. Really? I remembered Margot's warning. That was definitely not the kind of investment I should be bragging about to people. Still, I replied, mocking my own inability to give up. Really? Eleanor's bewilderment was evident on her face. She leaned back in her chair with a thud. When we were trying to prove Avalon's dishonesty, we felt like we were about to hit a dead end. I had said that there were still things we could do, and had suggested going to the ends of the lunar surface to check their power generation panels. Right now, she looked even more bewildered than she had then. Then, as if remembering something, Eleanor laughed before slapping her knees with both hands like a little girl. Feels like a weight's been lifted off my mind all of a sudden. May I ask what you mean by that? Do you want me to say I got rid of my lingering affection towards you? Eleanor said this with her eyes narrowed and a mischievous smile on her lips. Eleanor, who had managed to stay true to herself despite the millions or even billions of moles flying about, was no mere young lady. Before her eyes, which could see through all my inexperience, all I could do was shrink back. I thought that if I saw you, it might bring back a little of my old tomboyish spark. Eleanor then added, I may have been lying a bit when I said I was afraid of my life changing. Lying. Yes. What actually scares me are the changes happening within myself. That's... I thought about it but couldn't understand. I couldn't fathom the intentions of someone who would come all the way here just to see me. I felt like I was being awfully insensitive and I felt like running away. Upon seeing me like that, Eleanor seemed somewhat flustered as she spoke. I beg your pardon. I was behaving like a spoiled child. When I turned to look at her, Eleanor was straightening her back, as if she was about to begin some sort of voice training. I then realized that Eleanor herself might have been feeling conflicted about something. Truth be told, when I borrowed your strength to chase after Avalon, I was already at my limit. Huh? I blurted that out loud like an idiot. That's, well, sort of... Seeing her gulping down all these medicines and displaying a fixation bordering on insanity, I was aware that she certainly was getting close to her limit both physically and mentally. But why was she bringing this up now? As I looked at her in confusion, Eleanor shook her head. I was not close to the limit. I had already reached it long ago. I was just incapable of kneeling down. Maybe it was vanity, pride, or just me refusing to let all my efforts go to waste. Eleanor spoke in a small voice, her eyes fixated on the teacup in her hand. Which is why I can't really say that I have brought down Avalon in cooperation with you. That'd be somewhat arrogant of me. That's not... It is. The only reason why I managed to carry on till the end was because you took me by the hand. I could no longer walk on my own. Eleanor then turned her eyes towards a huge window pane. It seemed that as long as a hotel wasn't too cheap, it was guaranteed to have windows from which you could see either Earth or the moon. I thought these were my limits, both physically and mentally, but I was mistaken. It was just the progressive disappearance of that fiery passion I used to have, back when I was a foul-mouthed tomboy. You mean when you were super conceited? Jeez, Hal. Eleanor seemed slightly mad at me when she turned to me, but after that she laughed softly. Yes, when I was super conceited. You didn't take any baths, and you always ate your meals one-handed. I just let my hair grow as it pleased, and I was wearing sleepwear throughout the day. My bed was never made and covered in books and trash, and I was also starting to grow a mustache, you know? Looking at her now impeccable appearance, it seemed impossible to picture her like that, but I could. That was because I had also been there. My thirst for revenge and my will to pursue them no matter what, as per the Schweitzer family motto, justice and lord. The flame of these fiery feelings seemed to grow weaker as the days went by. In a way, I was scared. That flame that had been burning brightly in spite of everything was starting to fade away on its own for some reason. Eleanor said that, placing a hand on her chest. I kind of understood that. It was what most people refer to as becoming an adult. It was replaced by reason, which had gradually started to govern my thoughts. I thought things like, for such and such reasons I can't give up, I must not give up, or I must keep going. But there's only so much you can accomplish by relying on reason alone. That was when I met you, quiet and with plenty of fuel left. That fuel rekindled the fire within me. The imagery of a fire being rekindled was so fitting that I couldn't laugh. Somehow, it almost seemed as if it was planned in advance. And just like that, I was dragged along after you like you were some sort of fireball, and I managed to reach my goal somehow. Upon saying that, Eleanor looked at me. She was talking about the time right after that fire lit by the defeat of Avalon, after involving Gazanika and revealing Avalon's fraud started spreading to society. Having been rewarded for her efforts, so to speak, Eleanor began preparing for her return to Earth. At the time, I had wondered if that was because people with aristocratic upbringings like herself considered expressing one's feelings openly to be unrefined. However, I remember not being surprised by the expression she had on her face when we parted at the spaceport. An expression of utter accomplishment. I got it now. Had you run out of steam? At my words, Eleanor nodded a little. I had realized that I had become an adult, which is why I confessed my feelings for you. With those words, she turned to me with a decidedly mischievous look in her eyes. Since I was in no position to argue back, I resigned myself to holding her malicious gaze. I think that must have been my last resistance. Resistance? Because if I stayed by your side, I might have continued to burn. But I had turned her down, and Eleanor had given up. And now we were once again having a discussion in that kind of place. I think I was probably still being immature back then, but it was also because you were quite appealing, of course. It was an odd way of putting it, but I actually liked it. However, looking at you going from the entrance to the front desk and then wandering about, I realized I'd been right in deciding to go back to Earth. I didn't know whether she was doing that on purpose or not, but Eleanor kept on getting sidetracked. It was probably on purpose. After all, Eleanor was a proud young lady. You still have something you need to pursue, something that you did not manage to reach, even by defeating an entity like Avalon. You might think that this is normal, but actually it's not. But, well, I do feel like that place was a gathering spot for people like you. People chasing after incomplete endeavors. Or else people who are not satisfied till they go through with what else they've decided to do. I had nothing to say to that. I just watched Eleanor intently as she continued to speak. Which is why I'm glad I chose not to allow myself to be seen as some pitiful human stain on the moon, and instead decided to help you out. Huh? To help me out? I replied without thinking. Eleanor opened her eyes wide, then looked left and right as if she had dropped something important nearby before finally staring at me fixedly. As I was looking at her go, I tried to understand what I had said wrong. Bringing Avalon down had been no mean feat. Going to court, testifying in front of Parliament, and dealing with the media had made for a particularly murderous schedule. On more than a couple occasions, I had resented Eleanor for not staying and taking even just a small share of my workload. But even so, she had helped me out. When? In what way? I was genuinely puzzled, and Eleanor looked at me again. She now seemed almost on the verge of tears when she spoke. Hal? Yes? Are you really this clueless about anything that isn't investments? She was much more girlish than 4 years ago. I remembered Eleanor telling me about how Legoff felt ill for days after arriving on the surface and seeing her in her super-conceited state. As long as she had a well-kept appearance, I was sure she'd be mistaken for an angel or a fairy. As I was pondering that, I nodded like a prisoner just being told his sentence. I've been told this a lot. Eleanor put a hand on her forehead, closing her eyes tightly in dismay. She looked like she wanted to ask what had been the point of her solicitude over the last 4 years. However, I really had no idea what it was. At the time, Eleanor had not left out of gallantry, but to help me out. As I was about to ask her for some clarification, Eleanor glared at me with her hand against her forehead and her head tilted down. I sat up straight without thinking. That was a once-in-a-lifetime solicitude graciously bestowed upon you by Eleanor Schweitzer. Well, thank you very much. Gosh, well, I figured as much. Yes, that was to be expected. After all, it is indeed the main purpose of your trip. Eleanor shut my open mouth with a sharp look. She then sighed, sounding suddenly exhausted, and looked to the side brutally as she spoke. I just thought that the more you appeared in the media, the higher the odds of Agana seeing you were. Ah. Because this was broadcast everywhere, even on Earth. People on Earth have a love-hate relationship with the lunar surface. They were loving the whole Avalon thing. My country in particular celebrated it. Please prepare yourself before entering it. You will be treated as a national guest. Avalon was about the same scale as that small country. On the lunar surface, the scale of a company also represented the size of its greed. Eleanor's company was crushed by that greed and its reputation was injured, but it finally retrieved its honor after Avalon's schemes were exposed. I'd been so preoccupied by that matter that I truly hadn't thought about that. In the business world on the lunar surface, everyone knew about me. After all, the other person involved in that revelation had returned to Earth, leaving me with no choice but to deal with the aftermath by myself. And here I was thinking of telling my future grandchildren about how their granny had secretly helped a romance blossom. From your point of view, that might not be such a big deal. I realized that regardless of whether I answered or not, and regardless of what I said, it would be no good. I was absolutely appalled by the extent of my own stupidity. I was so focused on the world of investment that I sometimes fell into traps I hadn't noticed. I just kept on being deceived by things I didn't notice. But if nothing else, I'm relieved, as I thought you were earnest to the utmost. It is true, you are earnest to the utmost, unlike me, who is only passionate for a while. You are most likely the type of person who loves someone from the bottom of their heart. I'd really appreciate it if you went a little easier on me. As I was squirming on my chair, Eleanor just said firmly, I won't. That amount of retaliation is only fair. As I was reflecting on how she made a point, Eleanor unexpectedly smiled softly before going on. I think that is one of the good things about you. You took me along with you to the ends of the lunar surface. You made me look at outer space even though I was scared, and you turned a deaf ear to my pessimism. Indeed, I got to witness that on several occasions. If someone like me were on the receiving end of your feelings, they would be too intense for me, and I would probably end up taking refuge in my bathtub. Not satisfied with defeating Avalon, you also successfully are managing an investment fund, and now have plenty of money, right? Despite that, you are still devoting yourself to investments to the point of wearing yourself out, are you not? Despite having more than enough on your plate, you still haven't forgotten about your love from 8 years ago. In front of such sincerity, my petty tricks simply cannot compare. Even my younger, super conceited self would have trouble keeping up. Despite her sweet smile, Eleanor still gave off the feeling of being on the verge of tears as she spoke. Hal, please keep on moving forward. I will be rooting for you from Earth. At that instant, it felt as if Eleanor became an awfully distant existence. And yet, there was also some sort of warm-hearted connection between the two of us. With that, I realized that Eleanor had become a person of the past to me. She'd become a person in my memories. And Eleanor had probably come to that same conclusion herself. It was a rectitude appropriate for the 29th head of the Schweitzer family. Well, with that being said, Eleanor gathered her hands in front of her as if she was about to clap, and spoke not with the refined and noble air she had moments ago, but with her eyes literally sparkling. Now, how about you tell me in detail about that earnest love of yours? Luckily for you, we have plenty of time, you know? I couldn't escape it. Eleanor seemed to have no intention of letting me escape, and above all, I knew myself that escaping from the past was impossible. But it was by no means a bad feeling. I had been leaning away, but in the end I gave up, sat up straight on my chair, and started to talk bit by bit about Hagana. Reese's opinion of Eleanor, that she looked like the sort who'd sit in a stone castle spinning tales of love for a century or two, wasn't far off from the mark. Seeing how she got into the story with Hagana was truly a sight to behold. But it was that curiosity that allowed me to remember the happier parts of my times with Hagana. At Every time I brought up something that seemed normal to me, Eleanor would choke, flush bright red, and wave her hand for me to stop. I felt like I could finally see how much I loved Hagana. I've never seen a love story like that even on Earth. Eleanor finally uttered that, sweating profusely. I'm sure Hagana really loved you too. And then she said that. After that, she opted out of more tea in favor of cold sparkling water. It was as if she needed a cool drink before she'd go on. I don't think that has changed. But I haven't heard from her in 8 years, even with my great assistance. I cursed myself as I realized I'd just given Eleanor more ammunition to annoy me with. I'm only guessing, but I'm sure that Hagana knows about you, Hal. Huh? It's just that she didn't contact you. But that means that neither Risa nor I. Maybe it's because she's aware of just how hard you're looking for her. From everything you've told me, she's a very reserved person. Who, Hagana? I had never seen someone so accustomed to insulting people and calling them idiots. As I retorted, Eleanor quirked the corners of her lips in an odd expression. As I realized she was giggling with amazement, Eleanor sighed and started sipping her sparkling water with a straw. To think, you were holding each other's hands in bed. Ah. Eleanor wriggled, smiling. It's kind of embarrassing having that repeated back to me. After enjoying herself for a while, she said this in a carefree mood. Maybe she's actually very close to you, and she just can't reach out. Close to me, Hagana. That's just my supposition, a hunch I'm having. Hagana, close to me. Well, it's no surprise that wouldn't occur to you. Okay, I guess I understood now why she was talking as though this was partially my fault. But now I think I see why Risa's so affectionate with you. Always a boy. She looked just like Risa, smiling mischievously. Or maybe it was to do with the fact that she had an intelligence far beyond her years. However, this also might not be the case. This whole thing of the lunar surface elite buying people up for their skills. Earth wasn't too happy about it either. So Hagana really has... I think it quite likely. Strife, revolutions, or resource distribution problems, or discord that lasted for centuries. People are still fighting over these on Earth. People get dragged into all sorts of messes that arise because of that. That's why, even though greed runs the show here, since it's all limited to greed alone on the lunar surface, people on Earth are quite envious. It was true that, from that angle, the lunar surface looked very stable. Sometimes corporate collusions or price cartels were discovered, but those were exposed by people motivated by greed, not by any sort of official organization. And even though those people were as driven by mutual dislike as they were greed, they'd never allow anyone to feed off that. There were no mafia-type organizations here, partly because of how strict the ID checks were just to get in, and partly because there was nowhere to hide here. Likely, though, it was because many people saw the lunar surface as their utopia. If something were to get in the way of that, everyone would unite to dispose of their common enemy. That was just the sort of place this was. I'm sure that if the Avalon situation happened on Earth, we wouldn't have gotten out of this unscathed. Eleanor said that without hesitation. It's true, Barton did express that possibility. Their appeal was rejected and they got put in jail, right? Yes, most of the administrators. With one exception. Barton alone managed to escape. But even though he knew full well how to work his money and influence, he opted not to go by the general lunar surface creed of following one's convictions. This is why the lunar surface is a nice place, but the more you're here, the less able you are to see how eccentric it is. Observe things with a wide-spanning viewpoint. That was why Risa had forced me away from the lunar surface. Changing topic for a bit, I'm very pleased with how Marco is progressing. I also talked to Eleanor about ABS. She was my comrade in the fight against Avalon, even though I'd come to realize that what I was doing would likely only draw mockery from society. I expected her to validate my actions. But But she only gave the briefest of acknowledgments occasionally as I talked, mostly listening silently with a soft smile on her face. It was like a mother listening as a child spoke completely seriously about the monster outside their window. It's no easy feat to defeat people's expectations. I do think you are knowledgeable about the market, Hal, but I also consider myself as such. Or rather, I consider myself more knowledgeable about fraudulent companies that have stayed with us for unreasonably long periods of time. Don't you need the Suzy Woo get-up for this? I made a token attempt at fighting back. Honestly, those days are behind me. I'm a dignified lady. Sorry, didn't mean to be rude. The hard part about defeating people's expectations, you see, is that most people aren't inclined to give them up. Obsession. Precisely. The worst thing in investment is obsession. They do say that stock will accept any owner, right? No matter how much love you pour into your stocks, they'll betray you at the first opportunity. So you think housing is the same? Do you? Eleanor smiled and gave a dumbfounded sigh. You really are a man of the lunar surface, Hal, born and bred. What do you mean by that? You have no idea how much Earth admires the lunar surface. After waiting for my reaction for a moment, Eleanor resumed talking. This is literally a place beyond the clouds, a new world. Living there is a dream, and succeeding there is an even bigger dream. It's the same for people unable to leave their homeland. You might think of them as country bumpkins, but you are aware that doing business on the lunar surface gives you a degree of status. She squinted at me as though chiding an ignorant child. Why do you think so many investment funds and the like exist? People want to get involved with what goes on the lunar surface. Of course, there are profits to be gained, but these expectations are also part of the dream. The lunar surface is a land of dreams. A land of dreams. Yes, which is why, in your case, predicting when the bubble will burst is the same as predicting when people will give up on their dreams. And you of all people should know just how hard it is for people to give up on their dreams. That's... Besides, it's a fact that the price hasn't fallen even once. I've even entertained thoughts of investing. The price does keep rising, after all. You're able to stop yourself because you can feel it in your guts, in your very bones, that there's some sort of deception looming. Conversely, if this wasn't the case, you wouldn't be able to oppose this flow. I thought back to the branch office of the New Age development I had seen at the arrival gate of the orbital base. People there shook hands upon seeing the prices on the electronic signboard. I knew what that meant. Earth people thought the lunar surface was crazy. But if what Eleanor said was true, it may also have been them acknowledging just how out of their reach the lunar surface was. Cognitive bias. In spinning your wheels, spewing rhetoric. I think you understand it logically, but it's clear you still can't give up. Eleanor's words shook me so hard it made my chest ache. But even when she wore that faint smile, I could tell she was serious. Her eyes peered into my heart, slowly yet deeply. Now, I wonder why that could be. Why? I was in awe. I could not answer. Shouldn't you be able to find a reason for not giving up? You are right, bud. One calls such things fetters. Eleanor uttered this in one breath, smiling. I'm not a responsible party, so I can say what I like. Oh, wait, that's not entirely true. I do have some involvement since I introduced backers to you. Seems Marco's defending it just fine, though. Out of curiosity, then, what's driving you? I can't help but repress a giggle when I remember how reliable your investments have been over the last few years. I even thought you were really going to pursue your goals until you died. I'm a bit jealous of how serious and sincere you are, too. I felt the urge to nod at each of Eleanor's points. After having defeated Avalon, I was confident that I had not been lying to myself. I was confident, too, that I had been diligent in piling up my achievements to reach my goal. And yet, here you are, bewitched by incredible risks like some crazed gambler, and I wonder, what is the cause? After she said her piece, her mouth shut itself. She smiled, her cheeks puffed out with repressed laughter. Eleanor already knew why. She knew, and she was laughing. But why? Was it something that obvious from the outside? If that was the case, then I already had the answer within me. But what was it? Was it because, as Marco said, I could outwit the market dominated by mathematics? Because it would give a huge boost to the housing project? Because I would be able to outwit the cattle? I knew that each of these were plausible reasons, but that was not it. Those were all within my reach, and not to boast, but if I wanted to, I could achieve all of those in a day if I put my mind to it. So then, which way did my path lead? What did I think would await me after piling and stacking profits according to my convictions? The thing hidden at the bottom of my heart. Something that could kindle a flame strong enough for me to lose myself in the unbelievable scenario of ABS collapsing. Yes. Deep within my heart, there was something that waited to burn. What is it? I should be able to know. I must have known what it was. I checked my memories. I went beyond 4 years ago. I must have been aiming for this goal in the past. Back when I was a young boy and was so pointlessly enamored of mankind's first footsteps on the lunar surface. And I had been aiming for this goal with all my strength. Even Mars was not my ultimate goal. My goal was an untrodden land. Eleanor cocked her head and giggled at my muttering. Then, putting down the glass in her hand, she took out her handkerchief and brought it closer to me. And as I looked at the handkerchief in her hand, Eleanor rose a bit and touched my cheek with it. How could you forget this one thing when you can't even forget about Hagana? Besides, it's not like you actually had forgotten about it. Eleanor gave a smooth shrug and smiled. Did you ever look back on the trade data from the Lunar Surface Stock Exchange? Taken aback by the question, I shook my head. I wiped away the tears that had begun to spill from my eyes. You're like a different person. You were too grown up until now, Hal. Me, too grown up. Maybe that's a bad way of putting it. Let's say instead you were like a tiger waiting for the opportunity to pounce on its prey, sharpening your fangs. You had your sights set on your goal, and with the utmost care and steady steps, you were preparing yourself without letting anything sway you. And that state of mind has become natural for me. And upon seeing what you were after, you jumped at it with resolution. But everyone around you was so used to seeing you take care in all your preparations, and they were surprised. And since you knew how steadily the people around you observed you, their surprise surprised you. You were like, huh? Eleanor smiled as if she was enjoying herself. For the first time in several years, I felt blood rushing to my cheeks. But rather than embarrassment, I felt alive, with a strange feeling of ease. Investment is no gamble. It is an action a lot of people take to confirm how right their decisions are. Investments are made up of a lot of people's emotions. That's why it's so easy to tell what you're thinking when you invest. This is why you feel ashamed when you lose. Am I wrong? She asked if she was wrong, using the very words I used on Chris. This is why they must have thought you had gone crazy, since these investments were too different from your investment stance for the past few years. I can understand why you would rack your brain so hard you'd wear yourself out, since you thought you were simply obeying your goals and convictions. And the people around you were so surprised, I suppose you started wondering whether or not what you were doing was really that crazy. Am I crazy? No, I'm not. Then what is crazy? The people around me? Or did I misassess my goal? This is what you must have asked yourself. I listened to Eleanor's words as they poured over me, slow yet crystal clear like a refreshing shower first thing in the morning. I didn't talk back. I didn't think as I listened, because her words were penetrating my heart with no resistance whatsoever. So, just do it. And then, she uttered these words with such a carefree disposition that I was taken aback. You have money and connections, right? So just do it. But that's so irresponsible. This is just the opinion of a complete third party. She put some strange emphasis on the words complete third party, but her words were quite exact. Eleanor and I had fought together as comrades, but I had to fight this battle alone. An untrodden land, returns amounting to 1.8 trillion moles. Eleanor gazed at the earth outside the window. Even if there were 10 billion Earthlings, you wouldn't see many with such a dream. Are you an idiot? At felt as if somewhere at the edge of my hearing she had asked me this question. Yeah, I'm gonna have to split this day into 2 parts. Well then, I can't remain away from home too long, or bad rumors will start spreading, so let us meet at my manor on another occasion. Eleanor said this before going back, leaving with a distinguished smile. I was prey to a strange emotion similar to excitement, of the sort you'd experience right after a day with a very rough market. A strange blend of lethargy and accomplishment, mixed with both anguish and expectations for tomorrow. My head was spinning. Maybe it was because I had cried a little. But I was seeing through all the problems. I now knew why I was suffering, hesitating. It was a feeling similar to thinking that 2 lines in a 2-dimensional space were entangled, but discovering upon looking at them in 3 dimensions that they weren't entangled at all. But I still had qualms. Eleanor had lightheartedly said I should just do it. She was pushing me forward innocently, wearing a sweet smile. Was it because Eleanor was some sheltered little noble girl who enjoyed taking tea in a European forest while she gossiped happily about love? No. In a place that concentrated all the greed on the lunar surface, Eleanor had fought through and through, even bloodying herself in the process. This was why Eleanor had something Risa did not. That was cunning. I have seen a lot of companies go public that were borderline frauds. Just as she was about to leave the lounge, Eleanor uttered these words. But among these, there were companies that I would even find myself admiring. What did that mean? At my question, Eleanor gave an impish grin before saying, "It's all about how you say it." She giggled slightly, but said nothing more. But I understood full well what she meant. On one hand, Risa and Marco were expressing rejection. On the other, Eleanor was telling me to just do it. Yes. If what I was thinking, and probably what Dr. Wallace was thinking, was a plot to turn over and take advantage of the nature of the protection supposed to compensate for the loss of the securities, then the reverse would certainly hold true. The reverse of the reverse was the front. In other words, a fund whose main purpose would be hedging risk against the real estate market? Marco said this through the phone as if he had been caught off guard. Thanks to Eleanor's advice, I had no reason to hesitate. I picked up my tablet right away and called Marco. Yes, the real estate might remain on a steep price rise for the future, but there must be people shaking in fear at the idea at the time that it might take a drop. If investments from Earth weaken, or if sometimes the real estate falls into a period of stagnation, it's probably because there are people making profit-taking sales. But these people must be thinking that, if it was possible to hedge against the fall, they would want to keep their positions in the future. This would be a service for such people. But it's not against our goals, no. Caution bordering on stupidity befitting the wood-legged donkey. Of course, since I would be setting up a different fund, our main fund would be unaffected. There must be a lot of people who have real estate positions on a large scale and want to hedge the risks, right? But who can't possibly short-sell their own homes, right? And short-selling on the residential general index, when compared to the insurance money, ends up locking more capital. In the case of short-selling, losses know no limit. On the other hand, even for a no-refund insurance, the losses will only reach the amount that has been invested. Also, don't forget how gaga Earth people are about the lunar surface. They say that investing in the lunar surface gives you a degree of status. As I repeated the knowledge Eleanor had given me word for word, I could hear Marco groan on the other side of the phone. That's Eleanor's... straight from the horse's mouth, if you will. Just don't tell her I called her a horse. Marco fell silent again. Wonder how many people may have actually looked to see if you really said that. Pouring all of your assets into a no-refund insurance policy and hoping to earn a large profit thanks to that can only be called madness, period. That's because it showed a critical misunderstanding of the nature of what insurance was. But taking advantage of a no-refund insurance could guarantee you when something bad did happen. Now that would work. Even though this involved the same actions, with the sums involved being so different, it ended up sounding like a completely different thing. It would be as great as the differences between the king of pessimism who fell prey to madness and a logical widow thinking about her future. And as for the betting money at stake, even with a low betting amount per person, the amount would grow as more people gathered. big enough to even overcome this crazed gambit. Remember when we went to Sasha's place to ask her about ABS? Huh? I'm talking about another peculiarity of the products these investment banks develop. The claim it holds. The charm it holds. The charm? Try to picture the sales pitch. Since you are savvy enough about investment to hold real estate positions on the lunar surface, would you be interested in smart risk hedging by making use of this insurance package developed by the brightest minds on the lunar surface? Don't you think people would be interested? It has... I moistened my lips before talking. It has value that one can't buy with money. I could picture Margot's dumbfounded face perfectly. But this was not at all the same as the previous phone call. I had no sense that the silence on the other end was scary. I waited for his words, sitting by the hotel bay's window, glancing at the mall below and the people going back and forth. What would your initial settings be? He got interested. Without a pause, I answered. A lower limit of 300,000 moles fixed for 2 years. We will gather 40 million moles for sure. Are you really already soliciting people? That's my own funds. This was all about the money I could move freely. For someone managing a fund on the scale of ours, this was such a small amount I should be ashamed. Even Eagle would have several times that amount of money. This was literally a place where money would roar. But provided they had a properly functional, sensible mind, it would be people who would roar. But what you're trying to do is no different, don't you see? As a result, yeah, I just want to help our customers hedge their risks. It felt like the confusion in Margot's mind was seeping through the receiver. I was just talking about the same thing, but approaching it from another angle and thus poking at a weakness in human cognitive functions, so of course he would be confused. It was said that it would be hard even for a specialist of statistics, probabilities, or even ethics to overcome this with mere reasoning. When they say that the same product can be tremendously different when sold by different salesmen, this must be where the secret lies. By the way, Eleanor said she'd bring 1 million moles to the table. I said that in a carefree tone. I gave him a hint to help his confused brain decipher the situation. So you did ask Eleanor for advice? Well, she does work as an agent in the field of no-refund insurance after all, so what is there to worry so much about? After a long, long silence, Margot finally said this. I'll also be reporting this to Risa, just so you know. Of course, but... do explain to her about the insurance. I got it. I heaved a sigh of relief as Margot finally knelt down in resignation. I was relieved because I had more drastic measures up my sleeve if he had refused. Well, I'll deal with the legal stuff to set up the fund. And I'll handle explaining stuff to our customers. I swear. As Marco was grumbling, I realized I forgot to tell him something very important. Oh, right. On the same subject, there are a few lists I'm going to need. What are they? The investors taking huge real estate positions. Right, well, I guess I could call a few companies in the field to figure that out. What else? Also, a grin was appearing at the corners of my mouth. A list of problem customers. Buy me one of those. Huh? People like this keening goldsmith are worrywart to the extreme. Wouldn't they be just the perfect customers? That's... well, since it's a no-refund insurance, they know from the start that if nothing happens, it'll end at balance zero. They don't need to give themselves a stomach ulcer over the ups and downs of the market prices. Well, you have a point. Still, that's... what? Marco would not give an answer to my question. It looked like he was hesitating on the other side of the phone for a moment. Was he thinking it was utter stupidity to reach out to problem customers? The words Marco eventually uttered were not unexpected. That's what Dr. Wallace tried to do, right? That's right. Most certainly that's what it was. That was the only possibility I could think of. An insurance policy that would guarantee the full sum should 10 million moles worth of securities hour collapse is sold dirt cheap at 80,000 moles. This was the only way I could think of to turn a huge profit from a small amount of money. But the doctor made a mistake by entering the market way too soon. On top of that, he forcefully bet too much on positions that were way too big. I don't know if he got mesmerized by the profits or if he got struck by the madness of the real estate market the more he investigated until he couldn't see anything else. However, I could somehow sense which words Marco meant to say after that. If so, then it means actually intruding on what the doctor is doing, right? Yeah. It means we'll be fighting each other over insurance. As I answered without the slightest hesitation, Marco held his breath for a bit before speaking. Wouldn't we also have the option to invest in the doctor's fund? Joining in on the fund as other people did the hard work and simply reaping the spoils. It was quite common in the world of investment, but dealing with someone you neither knew nor cared about was very different from dealing with someone you knew. Besides, by investing in the doctor who was already accumulating positions, we would be able to avoid commissions on the purchase of insurance and save ourselves some trouble, and then... Marco hesitated as though having trouble finding the words. But it wouldn't stop there. The doctor's in a tight spot right now. This might help save him. If I wouldn't said it, Marco would never voice his agreement. However, if the doctor was in a tight spot, then that meant that Maria was also in a tight spot. Marco would probably want to be of assistance to her. Of course, myself, I would also like for Dr. Waltz to work hard and be able to keep on investing in the future. Then, however, this would mean... I said this flatly. I spoke just like one of those cold-blooded misers nested in the world of investment. Then if we invest in the doctor, our profits will be reduced. After all, an investment fund takes 20% of the profits as commission. I did consider myself a shallow miser. Even so, there was one line an investor must never cross and concede. Investors can call themselves investors because they earn the best monetary profits most efficiently. I'll be the one to talk to the doctor. After all, I did borrow his data to check on a few things. When I put it like that, Marco didn't protest, though he did let slip one thing that he couldn't hold back. Worst comes to worst, won't you get sued? Pens are not applicable to investment methods. Well, I guess that's precisely why he was so paranoid. And after that, I'll need a bit of legal advice on how to proceed with the sales promotion to our customers. I could hear Marco sigh lightly. He must have given up and switched his frame of mind. You mean Sasha, right? What do you want me to ask her? If I recall correctly, this type of financial product has legal regulations on purchase, just like there are restrictions on investment towards funds. Anyway, in the world of investment, problems were a given, so there were a lot of high-risk products that were restricted to people who either had or were expected to have very specialized knowledge. Funds like Eagles, Waltz's, or my own belong to that category. There were restrictions in place ensuring that only wealthy people who could move that sort of money around could invest in those types of funds. That was why, for instance, our fund had a 2 million wool investment minimum. This world was reputed to be a closed world, only accepting rich people, and such restrictions were the reason for that. However, there was a fundamental difference between receiving 30,000 wools from someone living hand-to-mouth and receiving 3 million wools of excess assets. I had learned this fact 8 years ago in the field. I really did think that this legal restriction made sense. Also, I think the protection limited to institutional investors. I think that was mentioned in the purchase agreement. I'll look into that. Well, since we're going to work as an agency, we'd better know how the products we sell actually work. Exactly. I'll look all that up and call you back. Thanks. I hung up the phone and heaved a sigh. I managed to maintain a resolute attitude in front of Marco, but the fact was that Dr. Waltz and I would wage open war with each other over profits, and it might really devolve into an ugly family quarrel between misers. But deep in my heart, I was on fire. I even felt a pang of affection for myself when I was not panicking, not knowing where I was on fire. This chance I encountered after biding my time was just that valuable. My whole body felt like it was about to burn from anticipation, that I might just be able to stand in an untrodden land. If it meant I could follow the call of my passion, I'd view a rival as an outright enemy if I had to. I grasped my tablet tightly, greedily, and put my hands to my forehead as if praying. As an investor, I was not doing anything wrong. After repeating this line to myself, I contacted Wallace. I was hoping they weren't actually going to show this, to be honest. Oh, see him. Those gruff words were the first thing out of Wallace's mouth. How are you doing? I hadn't called Wallace to indulge in idle chatter. The tone of my voice probably sounded dispirited to anyone who heard it. bleeding still hasn't stopped. Now the sharks are smelling the blood and starting to circle. Wallace said this with a guttural laugh. I am the king of pessimism. I always keep in mind the possibility that something bad will happen to me. I'm going to start a fund specialized in hedging that will protect against a decline of the real estate market. Oh. Wallace's exclamation was a mix between surprise and laughter. Well, I guess that's a positive way of phrasing it. So, in the business world, riding someone else's coattails isn't a bad thing. On the contrary, there's nothing wrong with finding someone on the decline whose plans always seem to backfire and conducting contrarian investments against them like some sort of death god. So you're saying you're not one of those on the decline, Doctor? Not unless you are. That old man sure was eloquent. Feeling somewhat relieved, I spoke. I saw some of your data while I was doing research. That's basically like trying to ascertain that UFOs exist by reading accounts from believers. Are you out of your mind? I've been to New Age Development, and after that to one of their branch offices. The main office said I was the first person who'd ever come to inquire about their loans, which was kind of surprising, especially since you had apparently been there a while ago. That's because they refused to receive me. Wallace replied with displeasure in his voice. I'm a god of plague. Those with a guilty conscience don't want to meet me. Those that alone achieve the goal of my visit. But that alone achieved the goal of my visit. If someone refuses to meet me, that's just proof they probably have something to hide. Well, I can imagine why. That place is the land of dreams. I'm not surprised that boorish people who only look at what's right in front of them wouldn't want to let you in. At my words, Wallace took a deep breath and then let it out slowly. Maybe he was annoyed that a nuisance had showed up to take part of the profits he was planning to earn for himself. Or maybe he was relieved that there was finally someone who agreed with his opinion. It was probably both. An investor was a strange creature who racked his brain trying to find a way to reduce risks for a position where risk-taking was necessary for profit, though he'd been on the verge of bankruptcy from the start. What was the deciding factor? Wallace asked me. There were 3 factors. The first is the ninja loans offered at the New Age Development branch office I saw at the spaceport. The second one would be the incredibly low interest yield of the rental market. Lastly, advice from someone on Earth concerning how much Earth admires the lunar surface. In other words, the real estate investments originating on Earth were completely unrelated to the actual demand. They were prepared to pay in accordance with their admiration, no matter how high the price. Wallace once again let out a huge sigh. So that means you won't give up on this anymore, because you have no reason to. Yes. But then, does that mean you are on Earth at the moment? I'm at the orbital base. And here I thought you lost your touch when I heard that your fund had started dabbling in ABS. You have lots of advisors where you are, unlike myself. Indeed. If Risa hadn't basically flung me to Earth, I almost certainly would have never realized what was going on. And then if I hadn't talked directly with Eleanor, I would have never received her unbelievably irresponsible and blunt advice. However, you have some followers, don't you? Turns out that there are fewer of them than I thought. Well, that figures. That's what my convictions over all these years amount to. Are you blaming me? I couldn't help but ask that. Do I blame you? Don't ask weird questions. I verified my theory using your data, and now I'm planning to use the same strategy as you. On top of that, after witnessing your failure, I might even do things in a wiser, smarter way than you. Oh? Are you feeling pangs of remorse? If so, then you're not sued for short selling. Wallace cleared his throat a bit before talking. Well, serving as a foundation for someone else isn't bad, I suppose. But why did you bet everything you had on this? That was something that had been bothering me. It wasn't like Dr. Wallace to become blinded by profit and make a bet where he could lose everything. On the contrary, he had made a name for himself by duping people who did that. Of course, I was in no position to say that, as I had been thrilled by the possibility of betting on the collapse of ABS. I just really wanted to ask him that. Why I did that? I've already said it, haven't I? Said what? That it would have been my greatest, and also my last, bet. Don't tell me. You're planning to retire. There was no mandatory retirement in the business world. On top of that, that was where only people with boundless greed gathered. Once their energy and perseverance were exhausted, they no longer had any regrets. By the time they finally managed to shift their attention from earning money to spending it, they usually had nothing worth buying save for their own coffin. There were Tons of people like that. Only those who are past redemption could probably survive. And Dr. Wallace struck me as the sort whose last words would be position orders for after his death. And yet, he was planning to retire. However, my surprise was blown off by Wallace's words. I have cancer. It's terminal. His body had become emaciated like a revenant, so that hadn't been caused by the pressure of investing. Well, it's true that you can't take it with you, though some decide to burn their money as some sort of anti-inflation measure. However, there is one single thing you can take to your coffin, which is the feeling of accomplishment. That's also what's written in your autobiography, right? Wallace had probably said this knowing full well that I had absolutely nothing to do with that so-called autobiography. I could also tell from the way he was cackling that he knew exactly what he was doing. However, I had sensed no falsehood in those words. He had probably made that quip to hide his embarrassment. It's something worth betting everything over. I'm awaiting some unbelievable returns, something suitable for the king of pessimism. But still, that negative carry is... Yes. There's no way to know when it'll be fulfilled. It's a matter of what will happen first. My death, my funds running out, or the market no longer being able to put up with this fabrication. Don't you think this is the perfect final bet for the king of pessimism? He wasn't bluffing. In this business, if you let yourself be influenced by baseless vanity or the like, it always ended up backfiring in the form of a cost of some sort. That was because it led to statistically unfavorable bets. When taken separately, these costs were so difficult to estimate, but over the course of several years, their extent was distinctly visible. Wallace was a veteran soldier who had gone through all that. He was perfectly aware of what he had done, what the circumstances were, and what he had seen. Bowing my head to a youngster was also part of that. That was quite the rare experience. If I were to have my own version of Avalon's defeat, that scene would be a real tearjerker. Am I the villain in it? Obviously. Though there's also an ending where we get to laugh together at the end of the story. If that bet is successful. Huh? His sudden increase in volume took me by surprise. Then, in a deeply annoyed tone, he said, "You don't get it at all. Profits don't deepen bonds. Shared losses are what deepen bonds." Not profits, but losses. You're particularly tenacious for someone your age, but you still lack experience. My bad. However, Wallace started, then lowered his voice and muttered, "I'm not perfect either." Hearing Wallace's admission, I asked him without thinking, "How so?" For once, he seemed to hesitate. Something seemed to prevent him from saying what he wanted. What could make someone like Dr. Wallace hesitate? As I thought, Dr. Wallace wasn't a child like me. I haven't told Maria about my cancer. What do you think? Personally, I just consider that as an application of investing. An application. The return is the tale of the unprecedented investment I will have made before collapsing, regardless of its success or failure. As someone risking his life for an investment, I'm sure that would make Maria proud. What about the risk? At my question, Wallace once again became silent. But that silence didn't last long. Maria will probably end up spending more time in a lawyer's office than visiting me at the hospital. I tried to repress a sigh, but finally failed to do so. You are an idiot, aren't you? What? I've been told the exact same thing just recently. I was asked if I was really that clueless about anything that wasn't investments by someone very dear to me. I'm sure you already know the answer, right, Doctor? Since you have no idea what you really want, you won't be able to reach what you want as an investor, you know? Wallace was just being a stubborn old man by staying silent, so I continued. Risa is a hardcore sister. If you want, I can ask her to help you out, and while you're at it, you could also ask her to intercede with God on your behalf. There was a silence, but it didn't last long. Please do. Even if you couldn't see me, I slowly nodded before replying. Understood. Good grief. Huh? Seems that even though I've lived this long, I never did manage to grow up. It was so exaggerated that I couldn't even laugh. That's the biggest joke of this century. What would a kid who hasn't even lived a quarter of a century know about that? His way of speaking was so fitting for the king of pessimism. I finally managed to laugh. Is it okay for me to assume that I've earned your approval for my new fund? It's not like I'm your guardian or anything. You can do whatever you want, though negative carry is quite a difficult thing to manage. I'm aware of this. Then I have nothing more to say. Let's share the pain of hemorrhaging together. However, are you really not going to invest in my own fund? As I politely refused, I sincerely thought to myself that I'd end up an old man just like him someday. We're still not even in the... Wow. We've crossed the 2-hour mark already, I know. I'm gonna take a break for a moment and I'll see. This may end up becoming a 3-parter for this one day. Calling prospective customers on the phone was a fundamental task that any investment fund did when starting business. Otherwise, we'd have to take 5 or 10 minutes of their time at investment conferences organized by investment banks to explain what kind of investments we did, and ended up supplicating the rich to give us funds along with all of the rabble. In exchange for providing such opportunities, investment banks would handle payments in our stead and get out a revenue stream from the handling fees, which meant nothing was affected by how well anyone's presentation went. They just needed someone to turn up a success, and they were not assisting us out of the goodness of their hearts. Plus, any rich types listening to your presentation weren't going to listen to you unless you had a few achievements under your belt. Ask anyone about their rough beginnings, and they'd all say the same thing. They just wouldn't treat me like a human being. In this field, you couldn't get investments without achievements, but it took capital to get those achievements. Thankfully, though, I never had to deal with these hardships. 8 years ago, even 4 years ago, funds would just flock to me on their own. I guess I was just born under a lucky star. That was why I got interested in tried calling prospective customers on the phone by myself. I called a real estate company who should have had strong positions in real estate. A hedge fund? Yes. For a company such as yours with large-scale positions, I thought you might be in need. Then, is the hero of the lunar surface going to start a fire insurance business or something? No, not at all. And that was how I got laughed at upon explaining ABS's protection. We have no need for it. It's a waste. We'd rather pay a real estate appraiser to stay near the buyers until he pays. What do you mean? If we kept on appraising properties until the last moment, we would reap the benefits of the price rise after all. For 1 second I thought it was a variation of that joke about countries plagued with hyperinflation, where the price of your meal would change in the time it took to eat it. But it seemed they were quite serious. So back on topic, we have no need for this insurance you mentioned. I see. On another topic, would you be interested in a few of our properties? With the latest commercial buildings, you would be able to invest in the hundreds of millions in one go. And if the hero of the lunar surface was to join the syndicate, I think it would fructify? I've never seen this word before. To twice or thrice immediately. Thank you very much. I politely thanked him before hanging up. A glance at the balance sheet told me that this company should be holding a total amount of over 6.1 billion mools in real estate positions, but they weren't even considering a shred of possibility that prices might fall. While I was waiting for Marco to complete all the various procedures, I repeated the same process, but no company I called showed interest. It looked like real estate agents did not understand what a price fall even was. A round square? What was that? That's how bad it was. With the first company I thought, hey, these things happen. With the second and third I merely thought, oh, them too. But after the 10th, I started getting suspicious. And when I reached the bottom of the list, I got on the phone to a person who had heard by coincidence that I was calling another company, and who blankly asked, oh, was that true? In this situation, I didn't feel like my scheme would go well. Rather, I got the sense they were being too irresponsible. And I even felt angry, wondering if they really understood what risks they were taking. And the highlight of the day was Marco's phone call. Are you done with the paperwork? It hadn't even been 24 hours. Even with a loose audit that could be bought by paying the fees, the procedures to set up a fund can only go so fast. And so Marco did reply with a no, not at all, breaking the ice with an annoyed voice. Hal, you were doing sales calls to real estate agents, right? Yeah, why are you asking? It seems someone at one of these real estate agents had the idea to call an acquaintance at an investment bank. We keep on getting sales calls now. Sales calls? As I asked in return for my brow, Marco answered with a sigh. For the protection. Seems they're gung-ho on selling it. At first I was taken aback. Then I answered. Put them on a reverse auction. Tell them you get way too many of these sales promotions. Sound as exasperated as you can. Hal, you're unexpectedly vicious. Probably because I'm acting like a short seller. Wasn't it supposed to be an insurance agency? Right. The phones aren't ringing so much it can't even work, but, well, I'll do what you said regarding buying protection. As for setting up the fund, I'll use Mr. Kazunika's name and it'll be done in a few hours. Oh, by the way, about the protection purchase regulations, I checked with E.J. Roachberg. It's as we supposed. It only applies to investors belonging to an organization and not to individual investors. Oh, and there's an amusing bit of information about that. Do tell. One of the common founders of Big Value tried to buy some, and he was turned down. Huh. But he should have more money than your average investment fund. I checked with Miss Sasha. She said it's probably because it's with an individual investor. If he turns up a loss, then it would be a load of trouble if he claimed he was a weak ignorant. I see. And it seems there have been a few other inquiries. The founder of a famous software company, for one. A real giant whose personal fortune is over 20 billion moles. What do you want to say? I can imagine Marco shrugging on the other end of the phone at my question. Quick-witted people seem to be sensing that there's something in the same direction, that the wind is right, that sort of thing. I wouldn't mind getting some wind in our sails. Huh? Real estate companies didn't even think about getting the protection. I thought there had to be a solid reason for this returns of 125 times figure. If you plan on backing out, I don't mind, you know. There are times where things go too well and it's scary, right? I'll be expecting gifts from your trip. With those words, Marco hung up. Marco himself might have been half in doubt about this bet. It was just after the real estate market did collapse. Right now, it genuinely felt like things were going far too well. If I wanted to quell that doubt, I could think about another possibility. That was, in short, that the real estate market wouldn't drop like everyone else was predicting. If so, then where everything would have gone just fine, we would just be running blindly to our deaths. A situation quite foreseeable and easy to understand. At the orbital base, I prepared an email with the new plans, which I'd send to the investors familiar with my one-legged donkey strategy, who had been investing for several years in my main fund. The usual thing beginning with, we pray for your continued success. As much as possible, I stressed that we were about to start with a plan to avoid risk, and I wrote how cautious this behavior was on the lunar surface. I also added an example involving Earth's disaster insurances. Right after one big disaster that happened once in several decades, everyone rushed to insurance companies so the prices soared. Which wasn't a logical move, since it was highly unlikely that such a disaster would happen again for another several decades. For the smartest investors, this was something you had to do before the disaster happened, right when it seemed useless. This was advanced preparation for the disaster. I did not write a single word about the imminent collapse of the real estate market. This was because even I understood that if I wrote such words, I would be called a false prophet. After finishing a good chunk of work and checking the time, I realized it was past 1 a.m. lunar surface time. Stopping my work and wrapped in a strange feeling of comfort, I fell asleep.